Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Franz here, and today I want to talk you through a couple of visual effects shots that I have recently finished for the feature film Asteroid City. It was a very special project because working on a Wes Anderson movie is, on the one hand, a very precise task, and on the other hand, you are faced with a lot of very long, very complex compositing shots. So today I decided to actually walk you through some of those shots to just give you a behind-the-scenes look on what was actually done, and maybe when you revisit the movie, you will think of me and all the tears and sweat that we had when finishing those shots. Have fun. Alright, so I want to talk you through a couple of shots that we have done here on Asteroid City, and it's probably the easiest that I'm just showing you the shot and then I'll talk you through what we have done in this shot. What we have done is actually we have replaced basically each and every rooftop here, and we had to cut back all of those poles here. We had a split screen here. So the whole shot is actually split around here. So this side is a different take than this side, but the people, they are actually walking across the street, so we had to rotate them out and put them back onto the other plate. And as you can see that on the top here, the whole plate is actually not standing still, but it's really very bumpy. So we had to stabilize everything and track all of those things accordingly. So we had to track this plate to match this plate here on this side, and to make this as invisible as possible, which was a huge task. The other thing that we had to do is actually remove some reflections here on the glass, because there were some wrong reflections going on, especially because we did some retimes. Well, then we had to remove all of the green elements that were visible here on the horizon, and this was quite a lot, so we had to do that. And then to top that all off, at the beginning everything runs normally, and then starting around frame 100, the bus itself was actually cut out of the original plate and retimed and then tracked back onto the plate, because the timing of the bus was not matching what Wes Anderson wanted. So that was one thing, and everything was done and finished, and you can see it's a quite long shot. And when we were done, production realized that the bus was missing this red line in the plate, so we had to go in and track that in as well. Yeah, now let's take another shot here, the alien approach shot where everything is green, and it was actually shot like that. What we had though is we had this element separate. This is a miniature, and the miniature was shot in two different stages. It was shot as a regular light with everything that you can see that is not green, like all the metal pieces, they were shot normally, and then the inside was shot with this green light on. So we had to mix that together. We got two plates where we had to mix that together, mask the entire thing out, and put that in. Then we have a couple of stars in the background, which is a matte painting. All of those elements over here and all the background here, these are all matte paintings. The same goes for the tower here. It's also matte painting. And the people here on the podium, they were shot on a green screen, so we had to key them out and put them back into this plate. and you can see there is like a light change going on. This was all done in compositing. It seemed to be a pretty straightforward shot, but in the end we had also quite a lot of motion in those static plates, so we had to track everything and make a very clean and stable plate and then track each element to that plate. The next shot that we're looking at, and in this case I'm walking you through the breakdown that we have, that's actually a shot where we had to do quite a lot of green screen compositing. So you can see we have a plate here, and if you look closely, that's only a couple or a handful of people that we are covering here. So we have a green screen here, and then keep that out, then put another green screen element back on top, and then another one. We also had to replace this yellow ribbon that goes around and then add another one. And then we had a matte painting in the background with an animated alien clock here. We added the light in the center. Yeah, and then the shot was actually done. So yeah, a couple of green screens combined together, altogether 3 different plates. Seemed straightforward, but in the end, as you can imagine, again, none of those shots were really static, so we had a lot of stabilization issues, and especially those smaller areas required some cleanup. Yeah, but that's kind of straightforward, I would say. Let's have a look at this shot here. This shot we got quite late in the game. The problem was the background here in this shot. And the background was actually, they shot something on the parking lot, but that was not working that well. So we replaced like everything here with a matte painting. And it was really important that the horizon was working quite well and that we have a kind of a parallax going on. So then we have a little bit of a split screen going on here. So everything that is inside got cut out, retimed, and then tracked back in. And then we have a cut line here, and everything that is underneath this upper part is actually replaced with a different take. And then same thing as always, we had to cut out this window area, retime that thing separately, and then track that back in so that they match the timing Wes Anderson wanted. So it was kind of actually a pretty complicated shot, and we got that shot quite late in the game, so it's something that we had to work on very immensely. Then let's look at some of those simpler shots and nice ones where we had to mix in some miniatures. This is a stop motion miniature. The flower is basically a stop motion animation. The whole background is a DMP. We have a breakdown for that shot, which is showing you how the shot was actually built. So we have a green screen element, which you really can't see. Then the glass and the pot in the center. The pot in the center and the whole thing had to be replaced, actually. So we had to increase the size of the glass, as you can see, and decrease the size of the flower pot. So that was the one task, while maintaining all the reflections and all that kind of stuff. We got like a couple of plates for the stop motion. This is the blue screen element that we got to key that thing out. We have had a couple of color takes as well, and yeah, and so we comped that in. Tracking again was a huge issue, as always, because as you can see, the whole shot is bouncing around a little bit. So we had quite a hard time to get the flower tracked in. Okay, so now let's talk about this shot on the climax of the movie, which was actually quite a lot of work because I don't know why, maybe due to Corona pandemic, a lot of the plates were shot separately, and a crowd scene like that was actually not possible to shoot all in camera, so they split everything up. And as you can see, we got like a plate where only a handful of people are standing there, and they had this banner here which needed to be removed completely because the entire banner was actually a stop-motion miniature animation that was rigged with an arm here to fall down in a very certain way. And then you can see a lot of green screen elements. There were always like a bunch of people on a green screen, and they were stacked up. Altogether we had 23 green screen plates that needed to be keyed out, stabilized. Sometimes we had to paint and reveal some parts, and then we had to color balance all of them together to make one final comp. Yeah, and then we added in the laser element here, for example, which was also a separate piece of element. The main or the major issues that we had was actually shadows on the ground, because shadows usually don't key that well. So as you can see here, the girl has no shadow at that point, and then we had to manually rotoscope in those shadows that were really noticeable. If you look very closely, you might find one or two missing shadows, I would say. Yeah, and then let's go to probably the most complex shot that we did, which is 1858 frames long. And it seems to be quite straightforward. The camera is doing a dolly move over there, landing on the situation where Augie explains his kids that their mother died. It was a dolly shot without motion control, so we had a lot of takes and a lot of different timings that we had to actually stitch together and track together, which is really difficult when it comes to a moving camera. So the first thing was actually the plate of the cowboy here is a separate take. So we cut that in, tracked that in, and matched everything to a line. Then another thing is all these kind of blinking that is going on here in the cigarette machine. Everything here is done in compositing and was not shot. The camera moves over. Everything that comes over here is actually a different take. So we had to be really clever to make an invisible transition here. And the main difficulty was that especially the background did not line up with the plate that was in here and the plate that was coming here. So what we had to do was actually rotoscope out the entire foreground and rebuild the background, and then actually replace the entire background. The other thing that we had to do was actually get rid of every green element that was still shining through in the background. There were a couple of mountains here, so we had to do all that cleanup as well. To top that off, the car, which is actually from another plate, had no shadow on the ground from this plate because the sun was actually behind a cloud when they shot that. So we had to replace or create a new shadow, which was kind of tricky and caused a lot of troubles, actually. That was the first 250 frames. And then the next huge problem arose, because as you can see here, there are no harsh shadows because this plate is very diffuse. Shadow was only added. And then you can see that there is a tent with a hammering man in this take. Now, this whole element here is again cut out from a different plate. You have transparencies, you have parallax, you have very fine detail here, and you have a very nasty background with strong amount of detail. So we had to replace the entire background, clean the background up, track everything, and as you can see there is a lot of strange motion going on. Track that new element of the tent in, and then move on. And the next problem is that the timing of the woman showering and the woman standing here, they were not in the liking of the director. So those two elements had to be cut out of the plate and then retimed and again tracked in, which again caused a lot of issues and a lot of trouble, because tracking something in that has like a lot of contrast here and a lot of lines that need to match in the line is actually kind of difficult. We go by this communal showers, and then the next issue arose, and that's the gardener here, and like everything here in the background, which was blowing in the wind. So when we pass Augie, so it runs normally until here, and when we pass Augie, we switch the entire element here. So the gardener is now a different timing, and it's actually tracked into this plate. The whole dog has a different timing. And then we had to find a clever solution what we do with these sheets that were hanging there blowing in the wind, because at some point I wanted to replace or go back to the original plate up here. And so I had to come up with some clever fluid morphs and some clever morphing techniques to find a way to make this basically invisible. Then we had to replace all the green elements in the background that were shining through. Then there is another thing, when the camera lands here, in the plate there is this vacuum cleaner. So we had to actually replace that whole element here, find a clean area, track that in, and then time the vacuum cleaner to appear whenever they liked it. A tiny little thing, but also that one caused some issues, because we have parallax in each and every element of this image. And to top everything off, on this very long shot with a lot of stitches, a lot of different takes, a lot of retimes, we had to actually come up with a solution to make this whole sky nice and bright and shiny, because especially in this second take where it was overcast, the sky was not shiny and bright at all, and it did not look like sunshine. So we had to create a mask for the entire sky to give the color graders an option to grade it separately, and also we did already some color grading. So it was a lot of roto as well, and finding holes in the mats and things like that. So fun shot. Took me around 3 months to finish. I would say the end result was actually working quite well, but yeah, a lot of heartache, and I was pretty wrong when I first estimated that it would maybe only take a couple of weeks to finish, because there were a lot of different things or difficult things that I did not see coming in this shot, especially the tracking of all the elements and the difficult retimes. The gardener at the end was a huge thing, blending the blowing cloths. Yeah, it kind of worked in the end pretty well, and I think that we are proud now of the results that we did. All in all, we worked on 49 visual effect shots, a lot of green screen, a lot of retimes, a lot of stitching, and yeah, it was real fun. I hope you had fun watching these walkthroughs. If you like them, let me know. I can do more of those. It's actually a nice behind the scenes look, I think. So yeah, let's see you soon.